I was just thinking, we've got some tips that'll make working at home not feel like work. That's too cheesy though. Damn it. I don't know. Hi guys, my name is Michael and I've been working remotely now for several months. And most people who work remotely will tell you there are a lot of benefits to it, but also some unique challenges. And so I'm going to share with you some of the things that I found challenging over the last several months and tips for how to overcome them. So my first tip has to do with time management. Now, I know there's a lot of different ways that people can manage their time. One thing that I've tried recently and found to be very effective is time blocking. So a common complaint that I've heard of people just losing track of their days, they're like, where did my time go, is they're stuck in meetings so much or responding to emails or messages from other people. It always seems like their time is being claimed by others more than themselves doing things that they need to do or things that are part of their core job. So I recently learned of time blocking, and the basic idea is you are going to schedule events in your calendar with yourself. And that way you have kind of a nice schedule to follow, and you're going to make sure you get those things done that are really important. So I would recommend either at the beginning of every day or at the end of every day doing this. So if it's at the beginning of the day, it's for that day. If it's at the end of the day, it's for the next day. But you're basically going to pick, I would say, between 3 and 5 of your top priorities that you want to get done. So the most important things, the things that would make you feel really successful, like you've advanced what you've wanted to. Then I would recommend ranking them. So like, what is the most important thing? Like if you got this one thing done, you would feel the best, and then rank them like that. And then as you're looking at your calendar, I would find those spaces between your meetings and other current obligations. You're not going to want to do this for all of your time. You do need some time to kind of react to things and just for random things to come up, but maybe 2/3 of your time or something like that. But you're just going to schedule blocks and start with that first priority, the number one thing. That's going to be the first thing you schedule. It doesn't necessarily have to be first thing in the day. It could be any time, but just make sure that one gets on there first. As far as how long to schedule, I feel like between half an hour and a couple hours. Long enough to feel like you've had a chance to get into the task, but obviously we only have so much time in the day. Totally depends on what's going on, but just keep going like that. So get the first priority scheduled, get the second priority scheduled if you can, third one scheduled if you can. At some point, you're going to run out of time, and that's okay. That's why you ordered them by priority. If you can't get to something today, there will be time down the road you can get to it. So that's kind of how you set it up. You do need to make sure that you have some kind of notifications that go off that tell you this is when you start the task, this is when you end it. And I would strongly recommend that you really stick to ending it when that time goes off, even if you really want to keep going. Just because you made that plan for a reason, and the idea is to try to follow it as best you can. Now, obviously, if you're working against a tight deadline and you need extra time for that task, you didn't get as much done as you thought, fine. But for the most part, try to finish and move on. One final thing I'll say on this is it is really important for your productivity of that task to try and eliminate as many distractions as you can. So I found it really helpful. I would recommend, as long as it's fine with your bosses, like turning off your email, turn off your messaging. Maybe don't have your phone right next to you, like go put it in another room. Turn off any apps that are going to potentially suck your attention from what you need to be doing. And that way, your mind is kind of free to just really focus on that thing. My second tip is to work hard to protect your mental and physical health. I've run into a lot of problems this year, especially with physical health. So I want to share with you some of the things that I've learned. The first thing that I'll say, which kind of has more to do with mental health, is it can be really hard to find a good work-life balance working from home. Because you're in the same space all day. So a couple things that I would recommend is first, try to have a dedicated space just where you work. I think if it can be a distinct room with a door that can open and close, like that's your best bet, like a home office. But even if that's not the case, if you can find a corner of a room, just some place that's only for work, and then when you're done with work, you can leave that space seems to be a good way to just help make that separation between life and work. If you can't do that, like if you work at your dining room table, you might consider just like actually shutting down your laptop and putting it in a drawer or something just to get it out of your mind, not something that you're tempted to sit down late at night and check an email. So that would be my first tip. Second is to just make sure at the end of the workday, you're done working. There can be an easy temptation, when you're in the office and you see everyone else leaving, it's time to go. But sometimes when you're at home and you're working on a project and the time, could be flying by, which is a good problem, you may miss the end of the day. So maybe you want to set an alarm, but just be clear about, when that workday is done and be done working. Next, I would say it might be a good idea to disable notifications outside of work hours. So, instead of having work emails constantly popping up on your phone, or if your business uses Slack or Teams or some other messaging app, just disable those things. That way you don't have to, your attention doesn't have to constantly be coming back to that during non-work hours. Next, with physical injuries, make sure you have a really good ergonomic setup. So, you want to be able to sit, fairly straight, with your back nice and straight, and have good 90-degree angles with your knees and with your elbows. So when you're typing, you don't want to be up here or way down. You just want a nice 90-degree angle, to help keep you nice and ergonomic. Also make sure your monitor is at eye level. I guess a common thing to throw all of this off is if you have your laptop on a table and that's what you use. Because let's say your elbows are perfect, now you're going to be looking down, so you're going to put strain on your neck. So at the very least, if you don't have monitors, put your laptop on a box or something and just get a keyboard separately, which those are fairly cheap. And that way, at least your screen can be up while you're typing lower. Those things make a huge difference. I've been fighting neck injuries all year and shoulder injuries, back injuries, just from figuring some of these things out. So pretty important. One thing that my wife and I actually just got are sit-stand desks, which we've really enjoyed using so far. So you might consider getting one of those. Everything I've read says that what's really good for your body is just moving a lot. So what you don't want to be is in the same position all the time. You want to be moving. So sitting, standing every half hour, it's really good for your body. That's actually a nice lead into my final thought on this tip, which is make sure you take a lot of breaks. And this is good for both the physical and the mental health. So again, that idea of you really want to be moving around a lot is really good for your body. But I also think mentally, at least for me, I tend to feel more focused and productive and charged when I do take frequent breaks than when I try to just power through for several hours at a time. One common thing to do is to set an alarm or a timer that continuously goes off. There's this thing known as the Pomodoro technique, which you could try, which is, I think you work 25 minutes and then take a 5-minute break. You do that 3 times. And then after 3 of those half-hour things, you take a longer break, 15, 20, 30 minutes. But that way you're giving your mind and your physical body a good chance to recharge. So my final tip has to do with how you work and connect with your team. So one of the common complaints with people working remotely is they can feel really disconnected from people who are working on site. Some of this is within your control and some is not, but at least these are some ideas that whether they're currently happening or not, maybe you could talk to your boss and see if a change could be made. But one thing that we do here at Bulb is utilize Microsoft Teams to collaborate and communicate with each other. One thing that's really nice with a platform like Teams is it allows us to message each other. We can call each other. We can set up meetings. We can also even share our screens. So if one person's having a problem, they can share their screen with someone else and get a solution that way. So pretty much any way that we need to communicate or collaborate with each other, it's all possible with Teams. Also, one of the really cool things about software like Teams is it puts everything in context. What I mean by that is different groups of people can be grouped into different teams, and then within each team, you can have different channels. And these channels are just a way to organize what it is you're talking about, either by project or customer or whatever way makes sense to you and your workers. So within each of those channels, you have the ability to have a continuous thread of conversation related to that channel. So it makes it really easy to switch contexts and just stay up to date, find things like that. So if you're not currently using something like that, like if you're emailing your colleagues a lot, or you have a variety of different systems for contacting, sharing documents, things like that, it's really worth considering getting a holistic system like Teams, which has worked really well for us. The other thing I'd say with connecting with your team is that can be really nice is staying socially connected. So for us, we have meetings 3 times a week, stand-ups, where we kind of all share what we're working on for the next few days. But at the beginning of those meetings, for the first 10, 15, sometimes 20 minutes, we'll just chat with each other, catch each other up on what we've been up to or things we've seen on the internet. The conversations have taken a lot of different turns, but we actually have all come to really look forward to that time. And it's even despite the craziness of this pandemic, we've all felt fairly connected even through that alone. We also have social events. Sometimes or a lot of times this year, they've been virtual, like playing virtual games or, trivia, things like that. But sometimes, as it's been safe, we've been able to meet in person, and that's always really fun. Sometimes at a restaurant, sometimes for outdoor events. We just had a big company cookout at a park and all ate together and played games, and it was really fun. So that, I would say, are 2 tips. Those are 2 tips to stay connected with your team. So those are my 3 tips for working remotely. The first one is managing your time with time blocking. The second one is working to protect your mental and physical health. And the third one is staying connected with your team through something like Microsoft Teams and also social events. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If so, please like and subscribe below. We're continuing to put out great content like this, so keep your eye on our channel, and we'll see you next time.